Thank you all very much for being here. I'm Elior from Spikerz, and this is a community management masterclass, protecting your brand on social media in the age of AI. What does that mean? Let's find out. So, today we're going to talk about something most brands completely underestimate, and that is the comment section on social media. For a long time, social media was all about content, what you post, how it looks, how it performs. But as you'll find out through this webinar, that's not really where things are decided anymore. What actually shapes brand perception is what happens after you post. That means the comments, the replies, the conversations happening underneath your content, often without you even noticing. And the problem with this is that it's also the place that brands have the least control over. But before we get into that, and before we introduce our incredible panel, I have a question for everyone watching at home. And that is, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to your comments on social media? I'm sure you have many challenges, so I'm going to give you 4 options to choose from. We've got A is responding to comments. So, sometimes keeping up with the scale of comments or trying to stay on brand can be overwhelming. Is it B, trolls and toxic comments? Especially now that AI is a thing, it's easy for these sort of comments to flood in under your posts. Is it C, is it starting conversations in the comments? Do you find it tough to get people to actually engage with your posts and give their opinions? Or is it D, scammers and impersonators? This could be phishing scams, fake Bitcoin investment scams, or even fake accounts pretending to be your brand or support team. Okay, we've got a lot of responses for trolls and toxic comments. It seems to be the most popular so far. No one's got scammers and impersonators. Good for you guys. Smashing it. Also, 23% of you have said that responding to comments is your biggest challenge. I definitely feel that. I've worked at brands with, millions of followers where there's, hundreds of comments coming on every post, and trying to, respond to all of those, figuring out which ones to respond to is definitely a tough one. Now let's bring in the experts and see what they think. This is our beautiful panel for today. I'm going to go to each of you and ask you to introduce yourself, give us a quick summary of who you are, who you work for, what you do, and I'm going to answer this question, which is what do brands still misunderstand about the role of comments on social media today? So, Paige, I'd like to start with you. Paige, introduce yourself and tell us what brands misunderstand about the role of comments on social media.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me as well. And it's been great so far. I've been having a great time. Hi, everyone. I'm Paige. I'm a community expert, and I've been in social media space for about 5 years now. So I think there's a lot of things that brands kind of misunderstand when it comes to comments and your social media strategy. And for me, being on the community side of things, I really think that it's an outlet for your customers to share real insights that you can kind of take and build that into different areas. So product development, customer feedback, and like actually building that customer loyalty. So if you're seeing a pattern of product related comments under a new feature push and maybe it's not working or there's a bug, those are really real comments that you can take back to the product team and actually close that product feedback loop. I think a lot of the time, social media managers think that comments are just an engagement metric. But for me, I think it's a community metric. So it's actually finding those comments that can turn your followers into those power users and really help determine the next stage of the product. So that's what I think a big misunderstanding is for comments in social media today.
Yeah, no, that is a great one. So I used to work for a company, actually. It was a vegan food brand that created a lot of recipe videos, recipe content. And we actually used Facebook as a way to get real feedback and insights from our customers about, which recipes they liked, what kind of recipes they wanted. And, it's a really useful tool for collecting that feedback and really hearing from them. I want to ask you a follow-up on that, Page, which is what changes for a brand when they start treating comments as a community and not just engagement?
Yeah, totally. I think the short answer, if I were to be like, 5 words, it's an increase in retention and customer loyalty. That's for sure. But what it really is it is closing those product feedback loops. It's building trust. It's gathering that product insights. And it's also allowing your customers to be involved in the product journey and not just marketed to or not just communicated to. So it's actually adding a layer of that relationship from customer to brand. So it's listening to those brand advocates because those are the people that are buying the product. Those are the people who are helping shape the product. So you have to listen to them, and it's going to help with your marketing strategies and everything else that makes your company run as a whole. Your brand is literally nothing without community. And it's really important that marketers do treat comments as community. And like I said, not just the engagement metric. So yeah, I really think when you start turning the comments into actual pieces of insights, you're really going to see that increase in retention, the increase in customer loyalty, and you're going to turn those followers into customers as well, into power users. So I think it's a completely different ballpark when you're really changing from the engagement route to the community route.
Amazing. Yeah, 100% agree. Thank you so much for sharing and great to have you on the panel with us. Tom, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about you, what you do, and what brands misunderstand about the role of comments on social media.
Definitely. Yeah. So thanks for having me on. It's great to be here. I've been in social for a very long time. Used to kind of work both in-house at larger brands and kind of externally in agencies. Then about 6 years ago, started my own social media and community agencies, boutique shop here out in Denver. Work with brands kind of all over the world. And last year, I wrote my first book called Social First Brands, which touches on a lot of these kind of subject matters and is near and dear to my heart. So that's a little bit about me. And then as far as that question, I think it's a really great one, right? I mean, there's so many answers I could give here, but I want to drill into like two layers of this. One being just kind of like more of a foundational layer to comments and this idea of community management in the first place. I think we see right now a lot of brands calling or maybe like beating their chest a little bit about their community and how much their community means to the brand and how close they listen, yada, yada, yada. But at the end of the day, right, like a lot of this is just like, it's really just being like a good, decent person, having some manners. I always think of this idea, right? Like if you worked at, let's say, Starbucks, right? And somebody walked up to you and says, "Hey, I love your shirt." And you're like, "Oh, thank you," right? You're not just to ignore that person. You're going to have some sort of small interaction there. It doesn't necessarily mean that person's like not part of the same community, right? No, it was a simple comment. It was a simple exchange you had there. You just had good manners and you didn't ignore them, right? I think a lot of the layer of community management comments today is we see brands conflating community with what just simply is maybe short interactions with people, right? And we'll get into this, I know, as this masterclass unfolds today too, right? These different layers to this, and it's more than just meets the eye. So I think that's the first piece. The second piece, though, to me, is it's more kind of strategic level of community management, and that really is this idea that comments. This is kind of what Paige was just talking about too, but like using like the true insights, right? What people are talking about, not just as like a number on a dashboard that you show to leadership, right? It's how are you actually using these to inform whether it's product feedback loops or content. I think is the biggest gold mine out there, right? Nowadays, the audience a lot of times is telling us the answer. They're telling us what they want to see more of, yet we don't pay attention to that. We go back to the boardroom or our meeting room with our team. We beat our head against the wall. We try to brainstorm the next genius campaign or piece of content. Meanwhile, the audience is telling us what that is, right? And so I think that second layer of it, right? Some people now go as far as to say comments are the new creative brief, right? And I think there's a lot of truth to that. So I think between those two levels, right, you got kind of the foundational, maybe misunderstanding, and that strategic layer that a lot of brands still don't understand about comments. Is how I would answer that.
Yeah, no, that is so true. I think that idea of Instagram or TikTok being about a brand sort of broadcasting posts to people and having that one-way communication system is completely outdated. I think comments are bringing in that idea of it being very much a conversation, which is, I think, at the end of the day, what's going to lead people to remember your brand and to really engage with it meaningfully. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, and great to have you here too. Naveh, it'd be great for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and what you think brands are misunderstanding about the role of comments.
Sure. So, Naveh, I'm co-founder, CEO here at Spikerz. We secure brands on social. And I'm coming from the world of digital for brands for quite some time now. I've been doing this for a few years. And I think for me, mostly, comments in general and community is not transactional. So when we used to do it for, 5-7 years ago, somebody comments something, you answer, this is engagement rate. It's less about that. It's more about how do you create more conversations? How do you control the narrative about something you want to put out there, and so on and so on. And this is very public, meaning because it's the comment section, everybody can see it. Anybody can engage there. So one of the things that we see, unfortunately, is that more and more brands are not aware of that. And because of that, somebody controlling the narrative, whether it's a competitor all the way to spammers or haters just going in and puts very bad stuff on your real estate. So it can be great. It can drive community. It can grow it. It can do some great stuff, but it also can be used as a negative injection into your very public asset called comment. So this is something, unfortunately, again, we see that this brand is just not fully understanding what can happen when this great tool can be used by the wrong people, the wrong party.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm sure that has been expanded a lot with the introduction of AI. We're going to go into a lot more detail on that in terms of AI generated comments and how that's impacted everything. But for now, yeah, let's look at our first example. So we've all met the panel, and we're going to bring in our first case study. It's one that I'm sure a lot of you have already seen on your feeds in recent months. It is, of course, this viral moment when the CEO of McDonald's posted a video where he taste tested the new McDonald's burger, called it a product instead of a burger, and took the smallest bite known to man, all while looking like a gun was pointed at his head. And of course, people rushed to the comments to add their take, and it got pretty savage, as I'm sure a lot of you have already seen. Other brands were also quick to jump in, with other burger CEOs actually posting their own taste test videos in response to his video. So for this one, Paige, I've got a question for you. What do you think about how these other fast food brands responded to the McDonald's video? Would you say that they got reactive marketing right in this case?
Honestly, short answer, yeah, I definitely think so. I think they completely nailed this one. The responses were really timely. They were relevant to their industry and what they talk about, obviously. And it was just the right amount of snarkiness, I'd say. So it felt very on brand for Burger King to jump in. They've been kind of going back and forth for years, forever. And so that one-upmanship, it's almost expected at this point. So wasn't very surprised when Burger King jumped in and was a little bit more reactive. But where it got interesting for me was when A&W and Wendy's popped in up as well. So that's kind of when it stopped being about like rivalry. I can't say that word, rivalry, and started becoming more of like a broader moment. So for A&W specifically, it was a really smart entry point because they didn't just join the conversation to get back at McDonald's. They used it to highlight their $5 burger. And in today's climate, that's a huge value prop. And I think that just helped that on so many levels. And then for Wendy's, they took it, I would say, the furthest. The CEO absolutely devoured the burger, did not feel like he had a gun to his head. He was like, I'm eating this burger for no one can stop me eating this burger is basically what he's saying. But then he also kind of played into their whole Wendy's experience of fries and Frosty combo, right? Like, do you dip your fries in your Frosty? And I'm a dipper. So that's, I'm like, yes, I do that. So for them, it was kind of building this whole experience and not just making a stance against McDonald's. So that felt very true to their brand voice as well. So what I will say is they didn't just react, they contributed. Yes, they did tap into a trending moment and, it was very timely and relevant, but they also added something really distinct while reinforcing what they stand for. So I think that's the difference between being reactive and showing what actually lands. So in my opinion, I think they did a really good job of not just hopping on the trend, but also adding in their value props as well.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. I think that, there's often a risky territory where brands start trying to sell their products and promote themselves on social media. So I think this almost gave them that entryway into someone promoted their product in a way that wasn't so great. That gave them opportunity to, use a trend and use something that people were already talking about to be part of that conversation while promoting their products authentically. So I think that's great. Amazing. So we're going to move on to our second example. So this example is another one that some of you may have seen. This is a campaign that American Eagle ran, showing off their brand by telling everyone that Sydney Sweeney has great genes. Now, what was meant as a harmless play on words quickly became a conversation about fascism, eugenics, and accusing American Eagle of promoting a superior race ideology, practically. So basically, the campaign very quickly stopped being about the genes and became something completely different, something that doesn't necessarily align with American Eagle's values. And then things actually got worse because after a long period of silence from the brand and from Sydney Sweeney after this backlash, they finally did address it, but in a way that caused even more escalation. So for this one, I've got a question for Tom. Tom, do you think American Eagle could have turned the conversation around and come out as the good guys in this situation? Or do you think it was already a lost cause as soon as the comments started going viral?
Yeah. And actually, before I kind of get into that, I don't know if that's the right question. I think in this case, right, because this one's kind of unique, was that ever the intention, right? Did they want to? There was never a desire to. I think this one clearly, right, with brand campaign, right? It was celebrity involvement. These things take months. I've been inside those meetings, months and months and months to bring into the world. Clearly along the way, they knew at least the potential of this turning into a conversation that had little to do about actual denim jeans, and turn into what one of the what it became. And I think in this case, right, it's a matter of like kind of separating like what is the strategy behind there, right?
Interesting. So you think there's a chance it may have been, if it was on purpose, it was a very interesting route to take. Some people are going to think that we're invoking Nazism, but it's part of the strategy. But yeah, it's definitely interesting and not beyond the realms of what brands have done in the past. So we're going to move on to our third example. Naveh, I'm going to give you a chance to give your take. So this is actually a recent one that I came across on my feed the other day. I'm not sure if anyone else has come across it. If you haven't seen it, this couple on the left shared a reel of the moment that they found out Virgin Voyages was redirecting their cruise from sunny Bahamas to New Brunswick in Canada. No offense, Paige. I'm sure New Brunswick in Canada has its charms. This was after they had already sent all their luggage ahead of them to the Bahamas. So obviously not an ideal situation. The post went absolutely viral, particularly because of the way Virgin Voyages tried and failed to use a fun and upbeat email to basically break the news to passengers that their cruise had been essentially ruined. Again, no offense, Paige. Then, doubling down on this, Virgin Voyages actually posted a meme on their Instagram that you can see on the right-hand side to address how much the email was criticized, which made people even more angry. This then spiraled into hundreds of abusive and hateful comments, both from passengers on the cruise and the general public. As you can see, these are just some of the comments I found. I've purposely left out the very worst ones because, well, this is a family show. Naveh, question for you based on this story. In your opinion, where is the line between genuine debate and hateful, toxic comments when it comes to social media? And what is the risk for brands if they don't remove these kind of comments when they cross the line?
So just to get connected to what Tom and Paige said earlier, so the comment section is a great place to look for feedback, right? So if it's somebody, a customer, a fan, a user of your system is coming to comment and share his feedback, as long as it's genuine, respectful, and even if it touches those nerves that you don't want them to touch, that's more than okay, right? That's part of community. Community is not only positive, but when it starts crossing the line to be abusive or toxic or hateful, but really hateful, this is where I would draw the line. If you put your brand on stake here and you basically say anybody can say whatever they want about my brand in my own real estate, then you're basically letting them control the narrative. And I think if you keep it up, and just leave it out there, think about yourself, right? Before you buy something, what do? You Google it or you go to social. So if I want to go buy new jeans or a cruise somewhere, I'm going to look for what people are saying about it. And if I see a majority of very angry people, I probably won't buy this. So in the end, if it's my brand's equity, reputation, and sales at stake, I would look for the ones that are generally, one, not true, but also the ones that are really, really hateful and abusive, and take those down. Because in the end, we are here to promote what is good for the brand and what is good for the ones that are using the brand. And if it's doing the opposite and maybe even being manipulated by, can be competitors, can be just bad people or trolls, it's definitely not helping to get to that goal.
Yeah, no, really interesting take. Yeah, like you mentioned, people are increasingly going to social media to research products before they actually go to the website's page or like other types of review websites. So, if your comments are full of negative reviews, negative feedback, a lot of it, I'm sure, is like also misinformation, people just trying to slander the brand, then, it's actually going to impact whether customers are going to feel safe buying from you.
Yeah, I think also to give maybe one example, so we have one customer that is using comments as a support, right? So they have like help desk, help support their tickets, and this is how they are controlling the customer help. One of the things that we start seeing is because they're leaving a lot of bad stuff and they are not able to be there on time, then scammers are using that as a fake help desk to actually go there and manipulate the ones that are truly thinking that speaking with the brand, but they're not. So if I'm a big hotel chain, I'm creating this hotel chain and call it hotel chain help desk or official account, which is of course not official. I can use this real estate to actually impersonate and scam other people on that real estate. So again, it can be a great tool, but also a great tool for the wrong people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm sure, like I mentioned before, that we're going to go into now, AI is playing a big role in making it much easier to create those impersonation accounts and to, come up with these comments and reply to these comments in a way that seems authentic and like it's coming from the actual brand.
Correct. And we see, I think we're going to get into that a little bit later, but the biggest problem is it's not manual anymore. People would have, they had 10 fingers, right, a few years back. And right now they have as many bots and AI agents as they want, right? So you can do whatever you want it's two sides, right? The attacker side and the defense side. And the attacker side, whatever they want, AI, laser beams, and supercomputers, and the brands have moderators or keywords. This is what we see today, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an unfair battle. And on that note, we are going to start talking about AI generated comments. So AI slop has been a very big talking point on social media, especially for those of you as addicted to LinkedIn as I am. In fact, AI slop was actually, as you can see here, chosen to be Macquarie's Dictionary Word of the Year last year because of the impact it had on discourse and what people were talking about online. I actually saw a stat recently that something like 30% of online conversations are being driven by bots nowadays, which is super scary because at that point, are brands even managing a real community anymore, or are they literally just interacting with robots? Naveh, I'd like to come back to you as our cybersecurity expert. And I want to know, are social media platforms doing enough to protect brands and audiences against AI-generated scams and comments, or is there a lot more that they should be doing?
So, of course, it depends on the platform, but generally speaking, unfortunately, they're not doing enough. You've all seen deep fakes of people inviting you to invest in something, or just wrong comments, very hateful, a lot of bots. All of you have heard about bots even before AI, but now it just became a bigger and bigger issue because it's easier to create. So platforms started to label AI generated content, but not AI generated accounts. So you can create as many content as you want. One, if they find it at all, but let's say they do, think about how many fake accounts are actually posting that. So you have, again, a different scale of a problem than what we used to have, let's say, 3 to 5 years ago. But also, if you really think about it, they don't have the incentive to do so. Why? Because they are counting active users. A bot is an active user. AI-generated content is content. So if they go to the stock exchange and to the market and say, hey, we used to have 4 billion accounts, now we have 4.1 billion accounts, that's good. If I take down 100 million fake accounts, I actually need to go back to the market and say, oh, we remember we had 4 billion, so we actually only have 3.9 now. So they don't have the incentive. On the contrary, they have the incentive not to do anything because they want you to keep engagement. They want you to keep scrolling. They want you to be out there. And for that, if they take action in most of those cases, you're going to do less of that.
Yeah, that's a super interesting take. I guess I never thought about that before, that, these social platforms at this point have got people hooked. And, once they start, people aren't necessarily going to leave until things get really bad. So as long as they can claim, look, we've got all these people using the platform, whether these are real people or not, it looks good for their numbers, for their shareholders. So yeah, I can see why they'd be incentivized to let this sort of thing happen. I'd love to hear from the people watching at home how you deal with your comments, particularly your harmful negative ones. So I've got another poll for you. And what I want to know is, do you use AI as part of your comment moderation strategy? So that could be anything from using it to flag harmful comments, using it to find the best replies, using it to come up with your strategy and your brand voice. So we've got actually 2/3 of you have said that no, you don't use AI as part of your comment moderation strategy. That is very interesting. It would be good to hear how you guys manage the scale of dealing with all these comments without the use of AI. I've seen brands that, like I mentioned, have hundreds, sometimes thousands of comments. And I know that, just having a human try and look over those comments, whether it's a social team or a customer support team, can be stressful. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting insight. Let's see what's going on in the chat. So Lindsay says she answered no, but she does use it to make replies more friendly sounding. Curious how others use it. Yes, definitely. I think we've all, been using ChatGPT, Claude to, reword things in a nicer, respectful, friendly way. Sometimes when comments come through, it's towards the end of the day, you're a bit frustrated. You want to say what's on your mind, but then you realize that you're representing the brand. You want to come across as nice and friendly and caring. AI can be a really useful tool for that. Angelica says, I could really do with having it for Trustpilot. Yes, AI is definitely helpful for reviews as well, for going to be able to moderate them, manage them. Paige says that's interesting. Paige, would you like to elaborate on why that's interesting?
Yeah, no, I think we always think about like moderated comments on social media and stuff like that. But when we look at review sites and stuff, I think that's a very interesting angle as well. Because I mean, for me, one way I use it is by just analyzing even the comment section. So even like copying and pasting like the whole page or the link and just saying like, would you say that this comment section is positive, negative? What would you like generate as a summary of this comment section? So that's just like one way I use AI to not moderate, but like analyze what's kind of going on in the comment section. But I think that would be really good for review sites too, to say, obviously we have that quantitative number of 5-star ratings, but what are people really saying within the ratings? So if there's ways that you could also catch that, AI could kind of catch those, give you TLDRs on what they're seeing and analyzing at a whole, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really interesting insight. Thank you. So we're getting to the final stage of the webinar, and it's time to discuss with the team how we actually deal with these things. Let's build a comment moderation playbook for social media teams, so people can leave this webinar with a playbook for winning on social media when it comes to building an engaged and safe community. Naveh, question for you. When it comes to comment moderation, building this playbook, what should AI be handling when it comes to comment moderation? Because as we saw, most of the people watching actually don't use AI to moderate their comments yet. But if people are going to be using AI, what should AI be handling and what should be left to humans?
So before that, let's understand if they're not using AI, what they are using. So right now, if you don't use AI, you have basically two things you can do. You can either do it manually yourself, scrolling as you guys said, and choosing what to remove, what to reply to, and what to do afterwards. Again, what do you do when you have a lot of that, right? Then you just need more people, more time of the day, and you never get a full sense of everything that's happening because we're just human beings. This is one. The other thing is keyword filtering. The biggest problem with keyword filtering is that it has no context. It's only keywords. I can give you an example. What happens if I'm Nike and I say anything that has to do with Adidas, I want out of my comments, right? But what happens if somebody is saying good stuff about Nike, but uses Adidas as a negative example in that comment? It will take it off, although you probably still want it. So there's no context. So AI gives you the full capability of understanding what this is. But in the other side of that, people still want to communicate with a human, right? So usually how we see it work the best for brands is one side, taking down all the bad stuff is great for AI because they can understand the context. So for example, brands that we work with, we're building the topic so we can filter for specific things, political issues, I don't know, hate speech, racism, fascism that we just saw in one of those examples, right? So you can filter for whatever you want and say, okay, if you find this in this context, take it off, right? To take it away from my community. But on the positive side, right, if somebody says something and you want to communicate with that, most people would love to communicate with a human being. Again, maybe maybe you have a lot of that and you don't want all 100% human. You can at least have some portion of that still human, so that you can still have genuine conversations, right? So if somebody says something bad about your product or maybe something to improve, like feedback, then maybe the first instance will be, thank you for saying such a thing. Somebody from our team will going to respond in a second so that they will feel heard. And then actually a person will get an AI response rate of saying, you should respond to that. And then a human being can actually respond. Then you probably see in those comments, say, hey, thank you for that. Somebody from our team will reply and nobody gets a reply, which is terrible. And then in the end, somebody says, thank you for saying this, we're going to look into it. And then they do like a small dash and then Layla or Dan, right? So you know there's somebody from that team. So you already are getting related to that person and you're feeling hurt. And that's part of community. So I think brands should definitely understand that volumes has gone through the roof because of AI on the commenter side, but also to respond to that, be able to manage that and be there so that it doesn't get rogue. It's important to do that with AI as well. Again, on taking down the bad stuff and improving the good stuff with the human.
Yeah, so that hybrid model is really what's going to be key then for businesses, learning how, to use that AI to automate some of that largest volume, but at the same time, keeping that human touch and that authenticity. That's super important. Paige, I've got one question for you before we open it up to a Q&A. And everyone watching, if you have any other questions you'd like to ask any of our guests or just a question for the panel in general, please feel free to put it into the chat and we'll try and get to as many as we can. So Paige, the question for you is, what would you advise to a social team trying to grow their audience and make their audience more loyal to the brand?
Yeah, my first piece of advice is to definitely listen to the comments. Don't just reply with like a thanks or like an emoji. Really do something with their comments. And if that means sharing that they shared something about the marketing campaign or the product, share that within the org and actually make use of their comment. That is actual gold insights, right? So listen to your customers, listen to your comments, and actually take action on that. Show your community that their input matters as well. So if you actually do take one of their recommendations or a product feedback that they're really wanting, and you take that to product and they bake that into the roadmap and they go live with it, show that we were listening to you guys and your recommendations have like materialized, that makes them feel a little bit more part of that journey. Like I was saying earlier, that, they listened to me and I had a good idea and they took it and they rolled with it. So I think once it's live and you remind them that this is something that they asked for, that really adds into that like loyalty aspect and makes them feel a little bit more belonging in the brand. Also create those spaces for your customers to feel comfortable. So it doesn't have to be like a full-blown community group within like an external platform. It could be like a Facebook group. It could be a LinkedIn group. It could be anywhere where you think your customers will appreciate and be there. Create that space for them. So I think that's a big thing that a lot of social teams are missing. Like you have so much opportunity to talk to these people and have them all in the same space. And then my last point is like, don't obsess over the numbers or compare to other bigger brands or anything like that just yet, because it really does take community time to grow. So give it that time. You're growing a forest and it's not going to be a flip of a switch. So the patience here is going to be huge and you just need to like ride it out. And so don't compare yourself. Don't think, why is my community not as big as, Lululemon's or something, right? It's like, give it the time to grow. And even real feedback from 50 people it's real feedback, and that will really help regardless. And that just shows, long-term value within that group. So give it the time.
Yeah, no, that is so important. There's this stereotype of in social media of, why can't our brand be more like Duolingo, or we need to do something like the big brands like Hootsuite, of course. So, that idea of, not comparing yourself to the brands that already have that huge following, probably like a very big community, often cases a big community team. Everyone's kind of moving at their own pace. Everyone needs to take the time to build their own authentic personality. And, like Naveh also mentioned, as brands scale, being able to kind of bring in AI where it's necessary, but still being able to keep that human authentic touch is going to be really crucial. Amazing. Yeah. So we've got about 5 minutes left. So I'd like to get a couple of questions from the audience in. So I'm going to get a question up, and whoever feels like they have a good answer to share, feel free to kind of jump in with it. So the first one is going to be this: as a business owner, how can my brand show up in the comments without sounding too much like a brand?
I'm happy to take an answer on this one. I think really what it is, and when we were thinking about like AI slop or AI generated comments and stuff like that, we can kind of see that formula of what AI is kind of looking like, right? And what a brand kind of has, that brand voice and that like almost like a podium that they can stand on, right? But when it comes down to it, is social media managers are people too, and we are human. And I think really lean into that. Treat the comment section like it's like your group chat. Give that group chat energy to your comment section. And if you want to, like, I used to misspell words on purpose so that it looked like, real, human, authentic. And like, that's just like one way to make a brand kind of come down to like the human level again, which is where you can using exclamation marks. Like I'm an avid exclamation mark person. So I think it's like, I have that human element to it as well. So yes, we do have like brand guidelines and you have your brand voice, but in the comment section, I think that's where your brand can kind of get a little, creative with it and have the freedom there to show like I'm a person too behind the phone and behind the screen, and we can kind of get on that friendship level. So I think just play around with, your wording and your like in use of emojis, use of misspelled words, play around with that. I did kind of see where it could take you.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Go on, Naveh.
I have two examples. Actually, one of them is by Wendy's. Did you share that earlier? So Wendy's has a very unique brand voice from the past couple of years. I don't know who of you here saw what they're doing on socials. They use like an old lady type of posting, like weird, like upper letters to the lower letters, like very weird. And they also comment that, right? So if somebody comments something, they comment as like an old lady commenting on it. So a lot of misspelling. So it's very similar to what they shared. But where it comes to like a genuine feedback, somebody complaining or anything like that, it switches completely and they go like full brand company level, say, hey, we're very sorry that this happened to you. Somebody from our team going to reach out. This is our number. And this is where things change. This is one example that I saw that worked pretty well. And the second thing is also using, as Paige said, people, but I'm taking it to something a little bit different, which is like personal branding. So if you're a person, part of a company, you can use your name, right? It's not as the official account. So personal branding comes in as well. So if you are, let's say, director of marketing and you comment as a director of marketing on that, or the business owner, then it gives a different angle to that. It's like the extreme human example where you are feeling responsible for what is happening there. So you're going in personal and going to help them to make sure this is um, being driven so that they can reach their goals or helping with their case or whatever this is.
Yeah, definitely. Another question, Naveh, this one's probably for you. As you know, Spikerz has comment moderation as part of its offering. And this one's from Sapir, who says, when leadership mainly cares about ROI, how can I justify paying for a comment moderation tool? So if you could tell us maybe a little bit about Spikerz and how Spikerz does comment moderation, and then, you know, like Sapir mentioned, as someone that whose managers are worried about, you know, how is this actually going to make us money? How's this going to save us money? How can someone justify that spend?
Sure. So there are two alternative costs in regards to comment moderation. One is to take care of it or not to take care of it. So if you do take care of it, and we covered that already, that you either do it manually or you do it with keywords, right? So if you do it manually, it's a lot of time, a lot. And we're working with companies that have a lot of moderators that are going in manually and removing stuff. And this is cost, like pure cost, taking out from the company's pocket and putting it on employees. This is one. And the other thing is the alternative cost of not doing anything. So this is brand equity, this is brand reputation, this is people not buying your product. So ROI with using AI is actually 10x, right? It's very, very high. Why? Because you can do a lot more with a lot less. And the accuracy of doing that is very, very high. Because when a person looks at a comment, it takes him a long time to really understand what is happening. And AI gets it in a fraction of a second. So when you have that and you're able to provide the right type of instruction, exactly what you want, and how you do that at scale, you'll be able to basically optimize the ROI on that. So if, for example, you're paying $1 for the AI, you're getting 10x by not spending a lot the manual moderation, but also by protecting your brand reputation, making sure your people's time is going to the right place, where I said earlier, for example, to engage as a human being and putting yourself out there to help your brand and your customers a lot better than just going in, deleting a lot of stuff, and people are getting frustrated. By the way, I don't know if you see this through my voice, but I used to do it myself a long time ago, and it took me, wow, I can't even put that in. It's really annoying. And doing that with AI just gives you scalability that it wasn't here before.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's really interesting. I feel like we've mentioned, you know, all these different threats that were around with AI. Like the solution also happens to be, you know, AI as well. You've almost got like these robots fighting each other. So yeah, it's a great concept. I've one very, very quick question before we finish off. What's one thing that people can do today, right now, to make their accounts safer and protect their comments?
Speak with us. Would have to help. We can book can do a full audit for you guys, for anybody who's interested. We run an audit that is completely free. We can find all the risks associated with your account, all the hidden threats, impersonations, the haters, and all just the bad comments. We can flag it for you. Of course, it's read only, so you can just see what's happening and decide if you want to do something about it.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, like Naveh mentioned, Spikerz offers a free comment audit. So feel free to scan our QR code, book yourself in, and our team will run you through all the different threats in your comments and help you create a strategy that's going to help you grow and engage with your supporters in a positive way without alienating anyone through all the spam and bots that have been flooded in. Well, that is all we have time for. Thank you so much to all of our guests for joining us. Everyone that joined at home, we hope you took something out of this. Go follow these amazing panelists on LinkedIn, keep up with what they're up to. You can see their names on screen. Like I mentioned, I hope you learned something. I hope you're going to take this away and be much better at building your community, protect them against threats. And it's been amazing to see so many of you from all over the world joining us today. And yeah, we hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Enjoy the weekend. Come back, start moderating your comments, and we'll see you all soon.